something, you will have to present like you are selling your project. And I did this and I did that and I did savings and it's impressive how they receive. If I was writing it, I have to do it, but I have no idea what to say, so you will have to do it. So Roberta did it with Michelle, someone from APAC. So Michelle had to present because she was training. So I will introduce
So I think, oh,
because otherwise I cannot justify.
me and my kids share the same YouTube account, so there's some odd mix of stuff happening there. But what really captured, I don't know if you want to comment on what you saw, like obviously the redder the area, the more focus it got. And visual attention is super universal, it's not dependent on culture or anything, that comes kind of later on. So some of the things, actually that annoys me a bit, I'll go here instead. We'll go through some of the things that are caught. But before I go on those, then one of the things I want to say is that if you notice that throughout the ad they have Carlsberg as a logo in the upper corner there, very, very little focus on it. And I think that's fair, but it's also back to the, how we see things. So even if your eye is focusing on something else, if you have consistent branding, it might still be captured as kind of a blurry thing that the brain then decodes into, okay, this is a Carlsberg ad, even if you don't put your focus on it. So with consistency, that can still happen. So it doesn't mean that it would be completely irrelevant since it didn't get the focus. But what does universally get focus is just having visual saliency, and what that means is that our reptile brain is reacting to certain things. It reacts to movement, it reacts to size, so if something comes really close versus really far away, you know where the distance is, and you can kind of decode that instantly. And then movement, obviously sudden movement, you need to react, so that's clear. And then colors and textures, so really bright colors, danger colors, and different colors and textures capture your attention immediately. So within those first milliseconds, it's something you notice. From marketing point of view, I think it's super interesting and relevant to know that faces are people, and that was very clear throughout the video, right? That it's always the face, and then when something is happening with the hands, you're looking at the hands. So two things that always catch attention, and then where your body is directed. So if you're kind of in this direction, that catches your attention versus if I'm facing forward. Not to show faces. Yes, and I remember commenting on that. We showed like half faces, which is very not on any visual attention, guardrails, which would have been on high alert there. And then also, if you see yourself, like on a Teams call, if you see, like seeing your own picture, you can't help but be drawn to it. Or if you see your name somewhere. So any personalized messages where your name pops up, you are reacting to it regardless if you want it or not. It draws your attention. And third thing, surprises. Back to the reptile brain. Surprises, good or bad. When you see things out of place, that's what you notice. The surprise, all of that is actually on when we talked about thinking fast and balancing the familiarity with novelty. So really having a trust and security in that you recognize something, but then having something that's slightly off, slightly surprising will make you draw your visual attention to it, as opposed to something that just looks exactly like it always has, then you're not paying attention and moving on. So things out of place, anything threatening or unexpected, and then emotions. So if you see emotions, you're obviously drawn to that from just the basic human nature of things. So these are the things. If you want to catch attention within those 2 first seconds, here's your kind of menu, and then figuring out how to bring the brand into that narrative will be some sort of ingredient for success. So what? You might say. I think it's super interesting just to know about this, but maybe you want to apply it somewhere or think about it in a more, actual tangible ways. And the first, those of you, since all of you work with marketing, I'm sure some or even all of you have heard about this example. So this is Tropicana, the orange juice. They did a brand revamp in 2009. So they launched a completely new, oh, you can't see it. Well, the one on the right is a completely revamped, fantastically new, modern Tetra Pak with, I would like to draw your attention to the orange. That's the cap. It was rounded with leaves, so it was like shaped like an orange. You had a much more modern look and feel to it, with like the logo on on a vertical and with a newer kind of typeface. You had 100% orange in big bold letters. Very kind of modern, and they just wanted to push the envelope a bit. So January 2009, this hit the shelves. Exactly the same shelf spots as before. Excuse me. And by February 23rd or something like that, end of February, they had to withdraw all of that newness out of it and brought back the old Tetra Pak because no one could find the orange juice anymore. It was in exactly the same spot, but they lost over 20% in sales in those weeks, just simply because people were confused, standing there looking for Tropicana, not seeing Tropicana, even if it was at exactly the same spot. So I think this is, learning number one. When you have a strong, consistent brand, you can really use that to your benefit to help people find you. And if you test things and kind of move your brand, you can ensure that you're not doing the same. Because it looks lovely, but that was really very flawed in design-wise in terms of having those consistent brand cues just, disappearing off the package. So really clear branding and making sure you're consistent about them can have a huge impact. Second point, details. Again, visuals. So details matter a lot in the creative execution. So even the finest, smallest details can make all the difference. Like this lovely old gentleman looking straight at you, you're looking straight back at him. But if you slightly move his face so that he's actually looking at the product you're trying to sell, something happens. You start actually seeing the product as opposed to looking at just him, and he looks like he has stories to tell. but just these slight tweaks. It doesn't need to cost more. It doesn't need to kind of take any extra effort from anyone. It's just being mindful of what draws attention and thinking about it when you're going into execution. So, final point then, this is, there's a lot of clicks, I'll just do this. What can you actually do within 2 seconds? We have data to show this as well. If you think that the average attention span is 2 seconds, you can't really tell a complex story. You have to be really realistic about, okay, what is important to say here and how can I do it in the best possible way. So there's no way you can really go into a product message in 2 seconds, dialing up, listing all those lovely features in 2 seconds won't happen because the average sentence takes 4 seconds for someone to read, so that won't happen. You have to go visual, and you can only remind them about something. That's kind of what you can hope to do within 2 seconds. You can't really do much more. And there's formats for different things, but think attention span, and then what message would kind of fit that format. Oh, sorry, it kept going on. So, what can I do is the last bit here. I don't know, dare I ask what you see in this image? Is it moving or no?
It is moving.
Because it's a static image, and supposedly, if you're stressed, the ball moves, and the faster it moves, the more stressed you are. So take a moment to calm down. And I swear it is a JPEG, it's an image. Maybe it's too early to be super stressed in the week, but anyway, what you can do, I recommend, there's a TED Talk by a lady called Amy Herman, and she has this, she hosts these trainings for people where she brings them to an art gallery to find new ways to look at things. So it could be kind of a class, or I don't know, school teachers, or it could be police officers or politicians, and she just does this exercise with them. And I find it really interesting. Because we normally don't do this, because, you know, we're thinking fast and slow and visual attention being instant, we don't think about it enough. So I think it's useful to actually use this framework. And what she says is that first, you need to assess your situation. So if you're looking at, I don't know, a visual of something that you're creating, just take a moment to kind of actually think about what you're seeing. So not just see it and move on, but actually stop and think and assess what's going on. And then analyze a bit, you know, what it is that you see. Do you see, you know, 2 people, 3 people, plants, light? It might be spring, you know, analyze it somehow and articulate it. So put what you're seeing into words, because there's, again, visuals are much faster than text. So if you're forcing yourself to move into a more mindful, conscious space, you can articulate what you're seeing and put them into words. And then based on that, you might actually be able to find improvements. So it might be a very odd exercise. At first, feel uncomfortable, but it might be super useful to actually, you know, force yourself to think what you're seeing from an objective point of view, as opposed to just reacting to certain things. So if we summarize what we've learned, the key takeaways are that 90% of the information that we process is visual, so always keep that in mind. Makes our role as marketeers hugely important, because we're often the final ones who kind of decide what we show to the world in terms of what we offer. Right, and then the brain is very lazy, so it tends to go to default. So again, when it comes to marketing, the fact that the brain is lazy is to our benefit, because then we can really work on that consistency and branding, and the brain doesn't want to have, you know, different things all the time, because that's just stressful and fragmenting it. So really it looks for patterns, and if we build patterns through our marketing, that's to our benefit and makes our lives easier as well. Yes, and the final point was that the brain is very selective, so it only pays attention to what we see, and what we see is not always what gets noticed, because it is that kind of laser-focused flashlight as opposed to a camera. And the recommendations was that, you know, be consistent so that we can have that recognition and contribution to us as a brand. Hugely important. And match the message complexity to the attention window that you have. So if you're doing a 1-minute thing, then you have the world of opportunities. But if you're doing something that's seen for most likely clicked away after 2 seconds, then, you know, be mindful of that and make sure that if you're spending money on it, at least they need to know who the sender was. That's kind of the minimum you can ask. And finally, notice what you pay attention to. So really, what are the things that you notice versus what you ignore? And that exercise that I had before, maybe that's something you can actually look at the same creative with someone of a colleague and actually articulate what you see, because you might be. Or remind about more about the brand or the product, so yes, you can be a video